Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do is talk briefly about the skeleton and do a little bit of drawing. Now I want to stress briefly because I feel as an artist that although the skeleton is important, obviously, it's the scaffolding, it's the thing that holds us together, it's what everything hangs on. From an artist's point of view, I'm more concerned about the surface. This is an anatomy. This is an artist's anatomy course, not a medical anatomy course. And so as an artist, I'm more concerned about what I'm seeing on the outside, how the muscles work, how light plays on the muscles, all that sort of thing. But obviously, those muscles attach to something and there is a structure underneath. So I do want to get that across to you, but we're going to go over it fairly briefly because there's so many parts of the body that have so much musculature on them or fat or whatever it might be that it completely changes what's happening underneath as far as a skeleton. And so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, like I said, from an artist's point of view. But I do want you to understand a few different things, like the difference between a man and a woman, why the hips and you know, some of the different proportions are what they are. So you can understand that when you go to draw either a man or a woman out of your head. So why don't we go ahead and just dive in. I'd like to go ahead and let's just start drawing a skeleton from 3/4. I'm going to start with the skull and just kind of work my way down. So just like I would any other part of the body, I'll start with a rough circle. And as I work my way down, I'm thinking about cheekbones. And if you feel on the side of your head, you've got these, the temporal bones right here that go into the eyes. I'm going to blow this up just a little bit more. There we go. And we go right into these cheekbones. I'm going to bring this out. There we go. And I'm going to bring that center line down. I'm going to come right into here, into those cheekbones. Those cheeks, if you feel, the cheeks will come under and come down into your mandibles, into your teeth. Like so. Let's go up here and get that nasal opening. And then the eye sockets. Now I'm going to cover the skull a little bit more when I get into the head. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time right here. But let's just go ahead and lay it in very quickly. There's a chin, and we've got teeth, and so on, and so on. Okay? So there's a very brief, very quick skull. Let me get that cranium a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay? So from the skull, what happens? Well, we got this, the spine comes off the back, and I want to get this S curve. And I'm going to, it comes back, and if you feel in your back, you can, if you look at people, there's this hollow in the lower part of the back. Well, that's important. So we're going to get that spine in there like so. Then right in here, your ribs and everything start right at the top. You start with your clavicles, the whole rib cage and everything starts right up here, right up at the top, and it kind of comes up. I'm going to draw that center line. It comes up, comes down, and around. So we get this kind of thing happening. I'm going to erase that out just a little bit. That kind of thing happening to the shape of the rib cage. Okay? And you've got your sternum that comes down. And these ribs here all kind of go this way. And I'm not going to get into, how many individual ribs there are. To me, that's not that important for what we're trying to learn here. What I do want you to know is look at that shape. Notice the direction that this is going. That rib, if I were to draw over the top of this, that body comes down and you're going to have muscle here, and that comes down like so, okay? And then you've got a neck, and you've got the head, All right, but this is why you see that thrust, the shape of the body here comes in like that. All right, so make sure that you're getting this kind of thrust to the rib cage, okay? And then we're gonna have, right out here is where we're gonna connect for our shoulders. But first, what's happening? Well, we got collarbones that come in right here, like so. These ribs come up in here. Collarbones that connect right in here. And then you've got that connect, your upper arm connects to your shoulder blades in the back. And we're going to talk about those in a minute when I draw the back part of the skeleton. And then we've got the arms that come in here. And I'm just going to quickly sketch this in just to get a feel for it. All right, so you've got this shape to the rib cage, okay? If we looked at it from the side, it would be the skeleton, the skull coming back like so. Okay, just briefly going to draw this in. And we've got the spine coming down. You got this S shape, and what you get with the rib cage is this. It comes down and then it comes up like so. Okay, so this comes down and around and thrusts up in the back. Thrusts up, you see that coming around back there? This thrusts up and you get all these ribs that are coming this way, like so. Let's go ahead and draw that in there. Okay, so that's what gives, you know, if you once again, I'm going to come back to here. If we draw over the top of this, and I was to draw the neck, you're going to get this feel, and it goes down into the belly, and then into the butt, and we're going to draw the pelvis here in just a minute. Okay, so that you get this right here, you get this kind of thrust, that kind of thing happening through the skeleton creates this rhythm through the body. Okay. Anyway, so we'll come down, and this, your spine down here gets really thick. It's carrying, at that point, it's carrying a lot of weight, and if you look, I mean, there's really nothing supporting it other than your spine. There's nothing supporting your body, your upper body. Everything is sitting on that spine, okay? You've got a little bit of muscle here and there, but that really doesn't give the support. Everything, you know, from your midsection up is all resting on that spine. So it's thick, it's got padding in between each vertebrae for cushioning. It needs to take a lot of impact. It needs to carry a lot of weight. So that comes down and right into your pelvis. Now the pelvis is an important area, and this is one of the things I do want to talk about that I think is important from a skeletal standpoint, because there's differences between men and women, and this is where, you know, that pelvis really dictates a lot of shape on the outside of the body. So let's just go ahead and dive in. So the pelvis, first of all, think of the pelvis, it's a confusing shape, but we have this that comes around, and it's going to come in. This kind of comes towards us. Think of the pelvis as kind of a bowl, okay? For lack of a better way of explaining it, that pelvis sits there and it's a bowl, and that's where all your guts sit, okay? Once again, all you've got is that spine that holds everything up from the midsection up. That's the only thing there. And then you've got your belly, and that connects down into the pelvis. Now on the back side of the pelvis is where all your glute muscles, your butt muscles connect, and we'll talk about that when we get into the legs and everything else. But in the front, all of your intestines, all of your organs, everything has to sit somewhere. And so that pelvis kind of forms a bowl. And so that's where everything sits. Now, obviously, there has to be some kind of opening in that bowl for waste to come out of, for babies to come out of. And so there's a few differences there that I'll talk about between men and women. But for both men and women, that pelvis is a bowl. It sits there, it holds all the organs up off the ground in gravity and from gravity. And so this is kind of concave, like so. You've got this nice bowl sitting here. And this comes down, and then on a male, you've got an opening here that tends to be somewhat smaller. Well, it is smaller. It's not somewhat smaller, it is smaller. And if I could draw through, you actually have the back end of the spine that comes down into almost like a little tail back there. And then you got your pubic bone right in here. And now the femurs connect right about in here, okay? And then back here, you've got this part of the pelvis. And then we'll draw it from the front too. And there's a little opening like there, like that. So this comes in and it's hollow. It's a bowl right here. These are your hips right there. So once again, if I draw over the top of this and this comes down, you'd have the chest coming down, and then there's the hip. There's a hip, and it comes down, and this is this is for a man. Coming up, coming up. And there's the shoulders. Very quickly, there's the head shape. Pectoralis, it'll go into the deltoids over here. We're going to cover all of this. There's that, whoops, there's that center line right there. So it follows the sternum, the rib cage. We've got ribs that come in this way. This is all muscle. But here, this is what I wanted to point out. You got the hip that, when you can feel it. You can feel that bone right there. So that's where that, that's where that sits. So then underneath, I'm going to leave this draw over on. You got your femur that comes out, and you've got the head of that femur. Let me erase that away a little bit. You got a little trochanter out here. This comes down, and it's going to come in a little bit. And then this comes out. This is going to come in a little bit. You see that angle coming in? And that's why if you look at people's legs, they, if you go from the hips, legs don't come straight down. This is something I want to iterate to you guys. I want to get across, your legs, the femur connects on the outside, and you get this rhythm that comes in and then down. So everything from the outside, you get kind of a V with the legs coming down. So, and I'll cover that when we get into the legs, we'll cover that musculature. But what you get is this, okay? But right here, I just want to talk about this angle because this is important. In a male, these hips aren't as wide, and where the femur connects is not as wide. So your angle, this angle right here, is not as pronounced. In a female, it's more pronounced, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. So we come down to the bottom, into your knees right here. You got kneecaps right there. Or, those kneecaps are there. The tendons, those kneecaps are there for tendons to attach to so that you can lift your leg up and down. All right. It makes lifting it up and down a little bit easier. If those kneecaps weren't there and it was just tendon going over the top of the bone, it'd be much more difficult to lift that leg up. But because that kneecap is there and you've got tendon on both sides, it makes the pushing off of the thighs, pushing off the ground to make a jump or to lift your leg up, it makes it much easier to do that. Okay. And then we come down into the lower part of the leg. And you've got two bones down here. One on the outside, and this you can feel that. If you feel down on the outside of your knee, just below your kneecap, and then on the outside, you can feel the head of that bone on the outside. And then we come right down into the feet. And just like in the wrist, you've got a bunch of bones in the wrist. Got a bunch of bones in the ankle. They come down like so. Let me turn that off real quick. So I'm going to go ahead, shorten these guys a little bit. There, now we've got a skeleton that feels proportionately a bit more correct. Okay? And then you've got the two bones in the arm, in the upper arm right here. Or in the lower arm, but up in the arms here. Come down to the wrists. Now when I get into talking about the arms and the musculature and all that sort of thing, I'm going to start talking about the rhythms and how everything flows. So, the arms are a good example of what I was talking about earlier at the beginning of this video, where, I'd much rather get into the musculature and talk about what's happening there than to talk about all the individual bones inside the arm, because you really don't see that much of it as an artist, okay? And then we'll get into the hands. So there we go. So there very quickly is a skeleton. So what's it look like if we looked at it straight on? I want to talk about the male and female differences. The biggest being that pelvic area. So why don't we just draw? Well, if we were looking at it straight on, you'd have the spine coming down. The rib cage is going to be up in here, and so I'm not going to worry about that right now. And so we connect into the pelvic area down in here. And so on a male, your hip is going to come up. It forms kind of this butterfly shape. Comes up like so, comes down. Remember, it's kind of a bowl shape. You've got this bowl shape. This is all kind of concave in here. And this is all a big opening. This in here is the opening. And then this comes down into the pubic bone. That comes up like so. And then in the back, if you feel, it's funny, but if you feel kind of right on the base of your butt, you can feel these bones right here. Okay? And on a male, there we go, like so. Now on a male, this angle right here, these bones are closer together, okay? So this is a tighter angle, like so. So actually more like that, okay? So then up in here, once again, this is where those femurs connect. They come out right about in there. And they come down, okay? And then the other femur right about in here. And I'm just going to quickly draw it down, okay? So once again, this angle, these two legs coming together like so, is a shallower angle than what we're going to see on a female, okay? And then we come back here, but then we have the knee, it comes down into the knees, like so. There's the kneecap, and then it comes down. But, so as if we drew the outside of the body, you've got the waist, and then there's your hip, waist, hip, and then that's where that femur is. So you can feel, if you feel right on the side of come down from your hip and feel right there, I can feel it right here. That's where it's called the trochanter, and it comes out and it sticks off of the head of that femur, okay? Now, let's look at a female. Let's do the same thing. So I'm going to have spine come down like so, same thing. coming down. I know this is rough, but I just want to very quickly make this point. Now here, you're going to see this part of the hip come much further out. It's more smooth. And it's a much more smooth bowl, dish. And why is that? Well, it's not just for guts anymore, right? You got, you know, with a female, this has got to be the home for a baby for 9 months. And so this dish has to be, you know, a little bit bigger. That bowl needs to hold all the intestines plus a human. A little tiny baby has to fit in there, okay? So that's nature's way of making room. So that's the difference in that female. So you've got these wider hips that come out. You've got a bigger dish, a bigger bowl. And along with that bigger bowl, you've got a bigger opening here, okay? Because that little guy, that little girl has got to come out. And then, you know, you've got on the back side, you got the rest of the backbone coming down to the spine. Okay, so then we come down into the pubic bone, just like we have here on the male. Pubic bone comes down, but notice how much bigger this opening is compared to here, okay? And you've got this dish coming down for those hips. We're going to have this come down. There's that pubic bone right there. Okay. Then once again, we're drawing these bones in here, which is called the ischium. You'll see the openings here. That's once again, those bones that you can feel down in your butt underneath all that meat. If you got a skinny butt, you can probably feel the bones a little better. But notice, as I'm drawing this, look at the angle here, and then look at the angle on that male. Not that it matters a whole lot, because you're really not going to see this when you're drawing, but I just thought it's, you know, I've always thought that was kind of interesting. Once again, one of the differences between that male pelvis, which you see here, and that female pelvis right here, okay? Now, we're going to get into adding the femur coming out. That comes down. There's the head of the femur coming out to the trochanter, coming out. And I'm just scribbling it in very quickly. Okay? And we'll draw these in. Now notice the angle difference here, here, and here, and here. And then as a woman, her build, I'm going to draw that rib cage in real quick. You know, you've got here, we looked at it from the outside, and then this is where that woman's, you know, the hourglass shape comes from on a woman. Notice how much wider those hips are on a female than on a male. And this is why you get this kind of shape. Look at the angle, okay? And it comes down to the pubic area, like so, all right? So this is what's happening underneath. That's what's happening with that pelvic area. So once again, and to review, think of that pelvic area as kind of this bowl, okay? That's where everything sits. For a man, it's all the guts, it's all the organs. For a woman, it's the same thing. It's all the guts, all the organs, all the intestines, but it's also that dish has to be bigger to hold a baby in there. And then it's, you know, this opening is larger for the baby to come out. It's lack of a better way of putting it, okay? So because all of that has to be, that opening has to be bigger, that dish needs to be bigger, the hips need to be wider, okay? Which is why a woman's hips tend to be wider than a male's. Okay, then we've got that angle right here, and the femurs are stronger than that angle on the femurs in a male. Now the femurs tend to be a little bit shorter proportionately on a female than on a male as well, okay? So there's that. Let's go ahead and look at the back very quickly, okay? So let's draw the head in here. Here's the back of the skull, let's say. Now, I'm gonna just very quickly, I want to focus on what's happening with those shoulder blades, the scapula. So once again, we're gonna get that shape. Oh, real quick, sorry. There's one more thing I forgot to mention. And I want to draw this. Let's do this. I'm going to take these and shrink these down. And the other thing I want to talk about is a female. If you notice, a woman's back tends to be arched a little bit more. There tends to be a little bit more S shape to the lower part of the body. And there's a reason for that. The pelvis, if you look at the pelvis on a male, it comes up, and I'm doing this in profile. This is the pelvis from, in profile. The back comes down like so. And you've got the hip, it comes down, and it's a real funky shape. But anyway, it comes down like so, and you've got the sacrum that comes down. You've got the pubic bone that comes in here, and then the femur and all that connects right in there. But you've got this kind of shape. On a female, everything is pushed forward just a bit more, which what that causes is it causes that sacrum to be pushed out a little bit more, and you get more of an S shape and more of a hollow to the back. So there you can see that shape coming in here for that for the pelvis, those hips coming down, and then into that pubic bone. Okay? And then we're going to have the femur and everything connect there. But this is all tilted a little bit more that way. Okay? So it causes this kind of shape, and a male has a less defined shape. So on a male, the butt, that butt will come out here. Well, on a female, I'm going to go ahead and lighten that up. On a female, you'll get this, and because that's pushed out and that sacrum is pushed out, you're going to get a little bit more butt. So that back end on a female tends to be a little bit more pronounced and a little bit bigger, and that's why, because that pelvis is pushed forward. It's tilted this way a little bit more, okay? So that was just another little quick piece of information that I wanted to give you. So let's go ahead and we'll get in here. So once again, coming down, I want to get into, here's the spine coming down. And I've got that S shape happening. All right. Now what's happening on the back? Well, the pelvis comes up back here. And when I get into the muscles of the back, I'll explain a little bit more of what's going on with that pelvis. But you get, once again, this little kind of butterfly shape happening. And once again, you got to think about this as kind of being that bowl, that dish for everything to sit in. And you've got an opening here and an opening right there. This is all kind of open for the sacrum and all that to sit in. And you can see that. See this shape? If you look at the lower back of a person, you can kind of see through, underneath the muscle, you can see kind of this diamond shape. Some women or men end up having like little dimples down the bottom of their back. Well, that's right here. That's what those little areas are in the pelvis. Those are the dimples. Okay? Then it comes in. So now we're looking at all this from behind. Like so. And then the head of that femur sits right in that socket. There's a socket right here. Comes down. I've got very loud motorcycles outside. Sorry about that. All right, so we've got that. So there's that pelvis, looking at the pelvis from behind. All right, so there's that. But then up in here, I want to talk about, we got the rib cage coming down. And it's going to come down like so. like so. I'm actually going to break this free and move it up. There we go. There. That feels much better. So there's that. Now, what I want to talk about are these shoulder blades. Now the shoulder blades are triangular, and the shoulder blades are there for muscle to attach to. There's a lot of muscle back here. The shoulder blades just kind of float. They just kind of sit back there and float, and that's there for different muscles to attach to. All right? So let's get into here. We got, the ribs coming this way, coming down and around. All right, so we're going to do that. But you got a shoulder blade basically that comes down this way. And then the other shoulder blade comes down and it comes down here, like so. All right, and what happens is, and I'm going to get into the musculature of the back in a later video, but I just want to briefly show you. You've got a trapezius muscle that comes down. This muscle in the back is trapezius, and it connects right along this ridge. There's a ridge on this scapula, on this shoulder blade. There's a ridge right here. So all this muscle connects here, like so. And that also connects to the spine, and it comes down like in here, and it all connects like so. Now, you've got your deltoids, which are your shoulders. They come down like that, and they come up and they connect to that part of the scapula, like so. Okay? So that ridge there is there for muscle to connect on this side and muscle to connect on this side. So that muscle can contract and relax, and use these ridges right here as anchor points, along with obviously being attached to the arms. So if I finish this out, so this comes up, that upper part of the arm comes up and connects in there. Then you've got your ridge that comes up this way, and you can feel those ridges. You can feel that hardness on the back of your shoulders, on that bone. You can feel that back there. Those are those ridges coming off your shoulder blade, okay? That's where all that muscle connects. And if you come off the ridge, you'll come up into your trapezius muscle, which is right here. All of a sudden it gets soft. Well, that connects to that ridge. Then if you come down off of that, well, that's the back side of your deltoid, the back side of your shoulder, and you can feel that come all the way around, okay? So that's what these ridges are right here, right on that those shoulder blades, just like that. And then your upper arm connects right in there. Okay? So those are the big important parts of the skeleton that I wanted to talk about. I really wanted to talk about the pelvis between a man and a woman. I wanted to talk about these shoulder blades and how those muscles connect. Okay? And really look at this S shape to the spine, because that's very important, so that you end up getting these different thrusts in the body. You've got this, the head kind of sits forward like so on the neck, and then the spine is shaped like so. You've got your rib cage that comes down like this, pelvis into the sacrum, like so, and then your femur connects here down to the knee, and so on down to the lower leg. Once again, I'm not going to do a whole lot with the bones down here, because all the muscles of the leg and everything completely change the shape of the leg, and that's what I really want to focus on, is that shape, how those muscles create the shape of the leg. Okay, so that's the skeleton very briefly. I wanted to talk about some of those bones, what's happening with the pelvis. Why don't we go ahead and move on to the next video.